Hi, it's Ron here, and I want to continue this theme of the difference between good and bad religion. And I want to do it by looking at a episode from the life of Jesus. It's the story of the woman caught in adultery. And as you probably know, in this story, this woman is dragged by the crowd in front of Jesus, and they say to him, "This woman has been caught in the act of committing adultery, and our law says that she should be stoned to death. What do you say, Jesus?" Now, it's important to just look at here for a moment. The Jews believed that their law came from God through Moses. So it was God given. So they believed at that time that it was God's will that this woman be stoned to death. And that's why they were testing Jesus to see what he would say about it. Now, this is a perfect example of the misuse of religion. It's using religion to justify our hatred and violence. It's using religion to judge people, to condemn people, to shame people, to put people down, to punish people. And this is the misuse of religion that has done so much damage throughout history. And it's the misuse of religion that in today's society a lot of people are rightly rejecting. They should reject it. This is the use of religion that terrorists use. They use religion to justify their killing and their hatred. They say, well, God hates you, therefore I can hate you, therefore I can cut your head off. Christians have done it throughout history as well. They said, well, God doesn't like pagans, so we can take their land, we can massacre them, and we can destroy their culture. God doesn't like black people, so we can put them into slavery. God doesn't like women as much as men, so we can treat them as inferior second-class citizens. It's done today by a lot of groups where a lot of Christians say, well, God hates homosexual people, God hates gays, so we can exclude them from our community, we can tell them they're evil, and we can condemn them to a life of torture in hell. Jesus doesn't make this mistake. He doesn't misuse religion in this way. Jesus is a symbol of the good use of religion. He says to the woman, he picks her up off the ground. His approach to her is much more compassionate, much more forgiving. It's non-judgmental. He doesn't shame her. He doesn't criticize her. He doesn't use her behavior against her. He doesn't condone her behavior. He doesn't say, yeah, look, just, keep having adultery, keep having a good time. He encourages her to live a life that is much more conducive to her dignity. He tells her to sin no more. But he doesn't use religion and God to put her down, to shame her, and to punish her. This is an example of the good use of religion. And this is an example of the use of religion we need to evolve towards much more as a society. We need to get rid of that bad religion and adopt a much more positive approach. And that way, so many people won't be as against religion and as negative towards religion as they are today. Now, a lot of people might ask the question at this point, well, what about heaven and hell? A lot of my students will often ask that question. If God is so loving and forgiving and compassionate, which we believe God is, what about heaven and hell? Well, one way to answer that question is to say that heaven and hell are not so much places that we are sent to by God. They're much more states of consciousness that we choose, that begin now and that continue on after we die, continue on into eternity. Bad religion will say that heaven is that hell is a place of eternal torture where you'll be burnt for eternity for being bad. So in this scenario, God ends up as being far worse than the worst terrorist imaginable. He's the eternal torturer. All right? Healthy religion, mature religion, will say that hell is much more, it's a freely chosen state. God gives us free will. He doesn't force us. He cannot force us to love him. Love has to be a free choice or it's nothing at all. So the choice to be with God is the beginning of heaven, And the choice to be separate from God is the beginning of hell. We see this in the story of the prodigal son, where the son freely chooses to leave his father's home and look for happiness somewhere else. And the father lets him. The father says, okay, if you want your money and you want to go spend it somewhere else, go. The father doesn't stop him at all. The son ends up, eating pig food. This is his hell. All his friends have left him. Then at a certain point, he freely decides to go back to the house of the father. And the father sees him, doesn't criticize him, doesn't condemn him, doesn't punish him, has a party for him, gives him a hug, puts a ring on his finger, and says, let's have a celebration. This is heaven. It's the free choice to be where we know we are loved. And hell is that free choice to be separate from God. So whatever heaven and hell are, and they're ultimately mysteries that we cannot understand, but whatever they are, somehow our free will has a place to play in it. So thank you for listening, and I hope this has been helpful. Thank you.